There is a fair bit of concern in and around people who support Burnley regarding the £170 million US takeover, because it's used the club's own money and loaded it with debt. Those behind the takeover is ALK Capital, and the headlines now are of the sort that many Burnley fans do not want to be looking at, because this debt aspect of it, initial reports that the club's own cash reserves have also been used to pay the selling shareholders were accurate. Sources with knowledge of the deal put that figure at between 30 and 40 million of the club's money.
If you look at this transaction, where is the current benefit to Burnley Football Club in this transaction? Burnley Football Club are not better off from this transaction unless these guys prove to be true to their word, and that will be seen over a passage of time. Their actions will be their words will be superseded by their actions. But the real beneficiaries of this, and they're entitled to be beneficiaries of it because they paid their money and they took their chances, are the exiting shareholders. The reasons why Burnley Football Club has been sold for £170 million is not because £170 million is going into Burnley Football Club. £170 million is going into the pockets of the current shareholders, which they're entitled to. It's their ownership. They can sell their football club for whatever they want. Here comes the conundrum. They haven't paid £170 million for this football club. They've borrowed £60 million from MSD, Michael Dell funding operation, to fund the purchase. Right, they've only in part paid the current shareholders. Right, so I guarantee you the next payments are probably going to come out of the cash flow of Burnley at some stage or another. I would, if I'm looking at smart money, I would suggest this is a classic American leverage purchase. The difficulty with this, Jim, is that I would reckon that these guys, this is supposition on my part, but I would reckon these guys have put 30 million quid of their own cash in this, right, and the rest of it they're seeking to fund. They've got 60 or 70 millions worth of funding from Dell to fund to get the shareholders the first 100 million quid. The other 70 million quid is going to come, I suspect, from Burnley's cash flow. So they're going to use Burnley's own money to finance this. They're going to go, look, we've bought a £200 million asset for 30 million of our own cash. So we're already in for 6 times the money. Here's the challenge for them. They're going to have to service this debt. Where's that servicing going to come from? That servicing is going to cost them £11 million a year, probably 12 for the first 2 or 3 years, and then ratchet down if they do it over 10 years to 10 million quid a year coming out of Burnley to fund their acquisition. It's great if Burnley continue to go in the same direction and the football world gets richer. The challenge is, if Burnley get this wrong for one season, This is like taking a mortgage on a house, right, and saying my house is in Chelsea in London. It's worth £1 million, but it'll always be in Chelsea, so it's always going to retain that value. It's not like saying I own a house in Chelsea and then I move it over to, with due respect, Brixton, which is where it's only worth 400 grand, which is what a football club can happen when it gets relegated.
Right.
So all of a sudden, this club gets relegated out of the Premier League.
Landscape changes.
Which is no reason that it should.
Yeah.
But Sean Dyche ain't going to be there forever. He's the glue. He's the adhesive. He's the reasons why they're achieving on the field. These guys, you know, they talk about the dynamic of English football. The big thing that the Americans miss, and they don't want to hear it and they don't like it and they're trying to change it, is that relegation exists in English football. The MLS and American football franchises are completely different. This is an American leveraged purchase, right, which has real jeopardy attached to it. If they get it right, and they don't have to have any challenges, and they continue, and the fans come back in, they don't lose the revenue ad infinitum from that, and they don't get relegated, and the bottle doesn't spin to Burnley, and Sean Dyche doesn't leave, then everything will be fine. But if it does, then you're going to see the cut of these guys jib, because they have done what is a classic American leverage turnover. Comparing it to Manchester United and talking about the culture of debt, these guys are not white knights for Burnley. They haven't come in because, like they say, oh, we want to be the great underdog like real Salt Lake City. They've bought this football club because if they put 30 million quid of their own money in it and it's currently worth 200 million quid, they've already made 6 times their money.
Yeah.
They've already made that. They're in the business of turning this into a franchise operation that makes them money. And if you're a Burnley fan, you should be looking in between the cracks and go, why do you need to borrow 60 million from the outset? The reasons why is because economically it's a really good deal for the purchaser. It's a really clever, structured commercial deal. And looking at Man United and saying, Man United is worth, in principle now, probably 2.5–3 billion quid. So the Glazers' debt of 500 million quid is extinguished by the value. Burnley's been sold for top dollar, right? So, and they haven't paid for it. They've paid not probably 15%.
So is this one big potential gamble surrounding Burnley?
Yeah, with respect to these guys, when I start hearing about artificial intelligence being used in apps and how they're going to recruit their scouting network, I sit there and I'm being a bit guilty of sniggering behind my hand. These guys have got a wake-up call coming. This is not what the Burnley fans think it is. This is a challenge. Now, we will tell in the summer. They didn't put any money in to buy players during the January transfer window, which I'm not surprised. They've bought Burnley at the most difficult time to buy a football club because there's no revenues coming in because the fans are out of it and challenged by COVID. This is very mixed territory. You've got American guys coming in to low-level Premier League clubs thinking they can leverage the debt, fund it with other people's money, and if they get it wrong, they may not be there to bridge the gap.
And Sean and the players can't get it wrong, because if Burnley was to be relegated, this deal and the new ownership spells disaster.
Look, if you're an owner of a football club, you praise your manager. You don't walk in and make him unassailable. Sean Dyche is a great football manager, right? But he isn't, the second coming. He isn't a panacea for all ails. They've made Sean Dyche unassailable. Do you know what Sean Dyche will think now? Great, I've got even more authority. Now I want 50 million quid. And when they don't get it, when he doesn't get it, Sean Dyche is going to have a turn. Right? Yeah. And then you've got a relationship with somebody that you've praised up to the eyebrows. You can't manage because you've made them unassailable. And now they're going to go because someone else wants them. Then you've got a chat.